Hello, everybody. Welcome to Meet the PhD series. And today we have Ananya joining us. Hi, Ananya.
Hey.
Thanks for joining. So, Ananya, I know her as a friend, and she's currently in her second year of her PhD at the Cancer Biology PhD program at the University of Zürich, and she's working at the Thoracic Surgery Department. So, Ananya, I would want to welcome you to today's interview. Thank you.
Hi.
Again.
Thank you for having me.
And let's start with the questions that I would ask you that I have asked also the other PhD students and candidates. So the first thing is that what is the research question that you're trying to answer in your PhD?
So basically, like I work on a particular type of cancer called mesothelioma.
Mm-hmm.
So like we know that we have like the organs in the thorax and the abdomen, and we know like that there's this thin layer of tissue that covers and like protects these organs.
Yes.
So then like, and this layer of tissue is called the mesothelium.
Mm-hmm.
And like when we get that, when tumors are generated out of like this tissue, we have mesothelioma.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in my PhD, what I'm trying to understand is this concept of RNA editing and how it like affects mesothelioma. So basically, like I think in cancer, everyone knows about DNA mutations and how like because of DNA mutations and inheriting DNA mutations and random DNA mutations, we get cancer. But then now, like there's this burgeoning topic of RNA editing, which is basically mutations in RNA, and how this affects cancer. So I'm studying this in mesothelioma.
Very interesting. And I'm sure we have talked about this before, but would you want to tell the viewers, especially if they are prospective PhD students or interested in cancer biology, is to are you using which sort of cell model are you using? So are you using a cell line or what is it that you're using in your PhD?
So like I think like for different PhDs, it's like and different types of questions, it's important to use different kinds of cells.
Yes.
So like in my particular case, right now in my PhD, I'm using mouse mesothelioma cells.
Okay.
So like we have mouse models of this disease. So and these are cells that we've gotten from tumors that have grown in mice, and then we have cultured them in dishes.
Okay.
So these cells kind of are representative of the disease in mice. And I think like so there have been studies, especially in cancer, where like mouse models are so important because we see that the way the disease develops in mice is all very, very similar to how it develops in humans. So I think by studying mouse models and cells that we get from mouse models, I think it's a really good way to study the disease or the condition without actually having to directly work on mice immediately.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to bring this up because many a times before we start our PhD, we're not sure about the type of the models that we have available, the experimental models. So it would be interesting to know what you're exactly working on in your PhD. Okay, so the next question is that why did you choose this field, and what was the moment like when you decided to pursue your PhD in this field?
So this question, like I don't think I can think of like a particular moment when I decided that I wanted to do research in cancer biology. But then I think like from when I was in school, I would just find like when we were sort of introduced to cancer in school and how it occurs and stuff, we get such a basic definition for it, and I was so curious to understand, okay, how this exactly happens. And so like even like before I started reading research papers and when I was just in school, I think I remember like going on the internet and reading about cancer and how like this one like normal cell can have like this like such an insignificant change, but then it could like result in a whole tumor, and tumors that have like plasticity and can become other types of cells, and like all these things are so like incredibly interesting to me. me. And like I think like when in school, when we were sort of introduced to cancer biology and what cancer is basically, I think from then I was just like, yeah, I think like this is for me. Yeah.
I remember also like not during school, but during bachelor's, when undergrad studies, when we had cancer biology, because I took medical biotechnology, and it was so interesting, like all the hallmarks of cancer and then different types of cancer. I mean, haven't read too much about it, but still had one semester of cancer biology, and it was one of my favorites too. So I can imagine how much of an interesting topic it is, and also that it affects so many people. So you feel like a lot motivated that whatever you're doing is going to some way contribute something in helping that. So interesting. So this is a question that I always ask almost all the people, all the PhD candidates, and they say yes for it. So I want to know your opinion on this. So do you like research in general, and what sparked your interest in research?
Yeah, I think I definitely like research in general because I think like personally for me, even if you took me out of like cancer research and you put me in any other field of biology research, I would enjoy myself.
Nice.
I think just the process of like learning and being curious about something is so much more important to me than like the specific field. And sure, like I chose cancer research and I'm really happy about it. But yeah, I think it's more the curiosity that drives like me than like the particular field.
The topic. Yeah. That's also interesting. I mean, that's an interesting thing to think about because for me, it's more of my topic that drives me. That is the motivation factor for me. But now you talk about the process and you say that the process is something that motivates you. So, wow, that's one very interesting insight that we get through the discussion.
I think I realized this like in my masters because so my master's was like a specific cancer biology master's, and clearly before I started my master's I knew I wanted to do cancer research. So like during my master's I had like 2 research projects, and one of them happened to not be in cancer research at all. And even though my master's was in cancer biology, one of my projects was completely different, and it was in structural biology and studying this receptor. And it, of course, that receptor had like some implications in cancer, but I was not studying it in cancer at all or in any connection to cancer. But I found myself enjoying that project so much as I'd enjoyed my previous project, which was in cancer research. And I think that made me realize, like, okay, yeah, it's just about, okay, what are the questions interesting enough? Are the questions like motivating me, and are they like sparking that curiosity in me to find the answers, right? Like, and I think that made me realize like how important like me being curious towards a topic is more than like my field itself.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, this is something that came out of this discussion, which I find very insightful and quite different from the other interviews that I had, because that's what I feel is that every interview is so unique, because when I talk to the other person, I see their perspective. Although these are the same set of questions, but as a person, how you see, what is your perspective, what you have been through, is something that changes the whole, I don't know, the pivot point of the whole discussion. So, okay. And the question that I want to ask you here is that, could you just tell us more about your career trajectory until now? So what did you study in your undergrads and then masters, and now we know what you're doing in your PhD. So just elaborate it in chronological manner.
Yeah. So I was like thinking about this question, and I sort of remembered that like when I was in school until like the 10th grade, I wanted to be an architect, and I wanted to pursue interior designing and stuff like that. And then like in India, after we finished 10th grade, when we go to like higher secondary, like or senior secondary school, we have to choose between, in our school at least, we had to choose between biology and computer science. And then we had like compulsory subjects like physics, chemistry, and math, and English. So then when I had to choose, it was like a no-brainer decision for me. Like there was no chance I was choosing computer science over biology, and I had to choose, like I knew I was going to choose biology. And then in the 11th and 12th grade, our biology teacher in school was an incredible teacher. She was so excited about the topic. She was so like excited to teach us, and like she motivated us to ask questions and to be curious about these things. And by the time I finished like 11th and 12th grade, I was so sure that okay, I'm not going to be an architect anymore. I am definitely going into biology. And so that time when I had to choose like what my undergraduate was going to be, I kind of already knew that like, okay, yeah, I'm studying biology, but I don't want to be a doctor. So like the other way for me to go would be research. But then even that, like how do I get to a point where I am able to do research? And I think like I considered doing like MBBS and becoming a doctor, and then eventually doing like medical research. But then, like, that just seemed like an extremely long path to get to medical research.
Can relate to it, yes.
and so then I was like, okay, yeah, so I know that I want to do, like, research related to some medical stuff. And so then, like, when I was trying to look at my options, I discussed a lot with my parents, and then we finally decided that, like, I would do, like, an undergraduate in biotechnology, so like a bachelor's in technology in biotechnology.
Well, I did the same.
and at the time, everyone was like, "Oh my God, biotechnology is such a growing field, and you're going to have so many opportunities after you finish biotechnology." But then, like, that didn't necessarily matter to me because I already knew that this is where my interest was, right? And yeah, so then I chose to do like my undergraduate in biotechnology, but like with an engineering sort of background, right? I went to an engineering college, and I studied at National Institute of Technology in Warangal. And yeah, and then so during my undergraduate studies, like I did 2 internships. So one was in like an academic background, and the other one was like an industrial background. And I like enjoyed the academic setting so much, and I think it was also because of like my supervisor, and she was so like patient with me as like an undergraduate student who never like even been in such a lab setting, because like our labs in college weren't that big and not so sophisticated, and she was so patient with me and teaching me basic concepts and stuff like that, and like that just like I enjoyed that process so much. And then when I went to do the industrial like internship, like I think I was supposed to be in the internship for like 2 months, and I left after 1 month because I found it so boring. Because it's like you're doing the exact same processes every day to find the exact same information again and again and again, because this is what they need, like needed in that particular lab. I'm not saying that all industry.
Exactly. I just
like
wanted
this.
to make that point here, because then sometimes people try to interpret it like that, but we are not against industries sure. It just really depends on the type of project that you're into in an industry. Rather, they have more sort of projects where they switch projects faster than academia. So yeah, I mean, this is true. I'm glad that you mentioned that point here, so that it does not create a confusion for people who are not sure.
So like, and I'm still not like against like going into industrial research even now.
It's in fact very interesting.
Like especially for cancer research, there's so much progress being made in like pharmaceutical industries and stuff. And I think that will be a really good like exposure for me, like once I'm done with my PhD at some point. But yeah, I think at that point, like during my undergraduate, like I could see, okay, I could compare physically and see, okay, yeah, I did my internship in an academic setting and I really enjoyed myself. And then I did it in an industrial setting, and I didn't seem to like enjoy it that much. So then like that kind of pushed me to be like, okay, yeah, research is like where I'm meant to be. And so after my undergraduate, like I was sort of already kind of sure that I wanted to do a PhD. So I applied for PhDs at that point, but I applied only in the US, and I was sort of kind of shooting really high. I applied to like 10 of like the topmost universities in the US, and without much experience or any papers published or anything like that. And I think I was being like extremely ambitious, but nevertheless, like that didn't like work out. Like getting into a PhD program immediately after undergrad.
Well, I did the same. I would like really relate here that I did apply to direct PhDs. And I assume for you it was cancer biology, so you were shifting from biotechnology to cancer biology, and in my case it was biotechnology to neuroscience. So the odds of getting into it, until unless you have an exceptional GRE score, exceptional TOEFL score, and also if you've had background in research, probably they'll take you in. But yes, what are the odds? And it does teach you something. So
that didn't really work out. So then I had applied for masters, but I applied only in the UK and in Germany because I felt like those were good places to apply to. And then I got admission in Imperial College London in the MRes, so it was like a master's in research in the cancer biology program. So I was there for a year, and it was just a year-long program, and then after that, I wanted to apply for PhDs again. And so I had the option of like applying to one of the labs that I'd worked in London. So I applied there first, and I got in, but then the funding situation in the UK for international students is quite difficult, especially if you've already studied there. Like, I think if you've done your master's in India and then you're looking to go to the UK for your PhD, I think there are a lot more Indian scholarships to support your PhD studies. But like, because I was already there, it was a lot more difficult for me to get the funding for my PhD. And then I was like, okay, I need to like come up with other options to do my PhD, because at this point I knew that that was going to be my next step. And then I found this this graduate school here in Zürich called the Lifesciences Zürich Graduate School, and it's like an umbrella program of like around 30 odd research programs, like going from plant biology to cancer biology to neuroscience. I think you're also in this graduate school.
Yes,
right?
I'm in the same one, but the other department. So your department is cancer biology, mine is neuroscience.
So then I applied here, and
so now you're here now. Nice one. And I really like the point that you mentioned about how it was for you. For like, I mean, you know, when you see yourself when you were applying for a PhD position just after your undergraduate study, what was your thought process? And then when you applied for it again after your master's, what was your thought process? So that was one thing that I wanted to highlight here for the audience, is that once you make yourself aware of more options and also try to understand what you exactly want to do and what is also pragmatic and practical, then it really helps you. Because even in my case, probably it's also an issue of age at that point of time. Like, you know, we are very ambitious, and not that we are not now ambitious.
It's not wrong to be ambitious either.
But then I think it's always good to talk to other people who have already gone through the same process, so they will have some inputs like we are talking about right now. So the people who are watching at that age now, they would see that, okay, there is another possibility also. If I'm not up to the mark, then maybe I can apply for a master's, get these skills, publish one paper probably, and it's not just about paper, but also understand what my what I want to do in future, and then apply with that expanded awareness sort of.
Exactly.
All right, so thanks, Ananya, for it's interesting discussion till now, very interesting.